Do you see the cut down the front of that sweatshirt?
Yes.
Did you
How could a
distinguish
car
that cut?
possibly done this? This testimony is huge. Absolutely huge.
You understood at that time that Michael Proctor was the lead detective, the person who was in control of the investigation.
Yes, that's what I was informed of when I arrived.
He just unraveled everything that Buchanan tried to set up.
So I couldn't confirm that they were blood, and no additional testing was done.
I couldn't confirm that it was blood. Is this woman drunk? Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Buckle Up, It's the Law. Folks, today we are going to continue with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, Maureen Hartnett. So now that the trial is on break, we still have content that we have not covered on this case. Namely, there are several witnesses such as O'Hara, Hartnett, Squerdibello, Valier, Bradford, Miyasako, and we're going to cover them over the next few days. We are essentially going to be all caught up by the time the trial resumes on Tuesday, okay? So Tuesday, I'm probably going to have to record some additional content because I think we are going to be just in time for when the court resumes on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025, just in time for the closing of the Commonwealth's case. So, folks, this long weekend with the additional extra couple of days could not have come at a better time for us personally and for you, because now you get to enjoy content that you are so desperately craving because there is no trial for 5 consecutive days. And trust me, folks, I know how you feel. I know how much you are starving for content, and allow me to present you with amazing content on a silver platter. So, without further ado, I bring you Maureen Hartnett, Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Maureen Hartnett. I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
Where did you go on February 1st, 2022?
I was dispatched to the Canton Police Station in their garage area.
When you went to the Canton Police Department, did anybody else from your lab go with you?
There was a crime scene services trooper that also responded at the same time, but there was no additional crime scene responder from my unit that responded.
Did you arrive at the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I did.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show P-145. Ms. Hartnett, is that what you saw when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Did anything stand out to you when you first looked at the back of that Lexus?
I noticed there was some damage to the rear passenger area of the vehicle.
Could you describe what you saw, ma'am?
Yes, so this is the driver's side of the black Lexus.
Did you get a closer look from the right side of the Lexus to pay detail or attention to what you described from the back view that stood out to you?
Are you referring to the damaged area?
I am.
Yes, so I did take notes of that area, and as well as had additional photographs taken of that area.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You want to tell me
Describe what you
that
saw.
that hit a person?
Yes, that is the rear
Really?
passenger taillight of the vehicle.
Okay.
So I can see one of the, it's a little difficult to see, but I do see one of the larger pieces of apparent glass right here. Would it be better if I use this one?
Could you? Do you mind?
So this piece here is a larger apparent piece of glass. I think that was the largest one that I saw. That is a close-up of the scratches that I noted in that area.
Is that on the back bumper or the right quarter panel?
I believe it's on the right bumper. It's a little difficult to make out in that photo.
You told us that you saw both dent and scratches. Starting with the scratches with the pointer on the TV to your right, could you show us where you saw further scratches?
So the scratches are up above, and then down here there's chipped paint and a dent.
How many pieces of hair did you find attached to that Lexus?
I found one apparent piece of hair on the Lexus. This is a close-up photo of the
Oh,
apparent
yeah.
piece of hair,
Hair
on
lady.
the rear of the vehicle.
I remember
That's
her.
an additional photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
In the two different photos, are they taken from the exact same angle?
I believe they're taken from slightly different angles. This here is the apparent hair. That is a photo that I took of the taillight housing at the laboratory.
Would you please remove the item from that box?
Yes.
You could hold that so the jury can see it. You could hold it up high, please. Thank you. Can you show us some of the small pieces in the bottom of the bag and also the small separate packaging that you did not package?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you explain what those are?
These are two small glassine envelopes that were in the container. Those are 6 red plastic cups that contained frozen red-brown stains. I took a collection from one of the cups using 2 sterile cotton swabs. This is the exterior front of the gray sweatshirt. There is linear damage between the top and bottom of the sweatshirt, as well as linear damage across each sleeve of the sweatshirt.
Do you see the cut down the front of that sweatshirt?
Yes.
Did you
How could a
distinguish that
car
cut?
possibly done this? That is not possible. That is not possible. There would be extensive damage to the vehicle. It would be in shambles. He was in a fight and a dog and a human ripped up his sweatshirt. Come on.
Is any different than the damage on the arm?
I did not do any damage analysis on that particular area of damage.
Why not?
Typically in these type of events, you'll see those types of damage associated with clothing being removed from emergency medical technicians, so they're not forensically relevant.
Is this the same sweatshirt?
Yes, it is.
And there's a little bit difference. There's markings or tabs on it?
Yes, that's correct.
What are you doing there?
I put tabs on each of the areas of damage on the sleeve and 2 on the chest that I was going to examine further.
That's the
When
dog
you
bite.
put the tabs on, do you write a report or mark it in any way to memorialize it?
Dog
in case
bites
the tabs
from
fall
Chloe.
off?
Yes, in this case, they were marked tabs 1 through 9. Those are not permanent on the sweatshirt. They're actually just pieces of filter paper that I used to mark it. Each tab has a number on it that corresponds with an area of damage that I examined. That's a close-up photo of that same area of damage 1 with a scale included. That is a photograph of item 7-17, is the back of the orange t-shirt. That is a photograph of the front of the orange t-shirt, item 7-17. I used markers on this item to note areas of staining that I was going to do further analysis on. I also performed a confirmatory test for blood on that stain. These pants also had linear damage between the top and the bottom, which would be consistent with cuts made by emergency medical personnel when removing the item. I noted numerous red-brown stains on the clothing, as well as dirt and debris on the clothing.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hartnett.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Is it acceptable to you for me to refer to you as Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
You were dispatched to the Sally Port at the Canton Police Department on February 1st, 2022 by former Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You understood at that time that Michael Proctor was the lead detective, the person who was in control of the investigation.
Yes, that's what I was informed of when I read.
He just unraveled everything that Buchanan tried to set up. Everything. Buchanan's like, no, I wouldn't call him the lead investigator. He was the case officer that was assigned, kind of sorted to the case, but I'm his supervisor. And Hartnett just unraveled days, possibly weeks of testimony. He was the lead investigator, correct? Yep, that's what I was told. The jury believes her. Oh my God. Tate.
While you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to conduct an overview of the vehicle meaning the black Lexus SUV that you talked about extensively on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you were looking for anything possible that would rise to the level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're familiar with the parlance investigative concern, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's why you noted various items, for example, scratches on the vehicle.
Yes.
You didn't draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from, though, did you?
No, I did not.
The dent that you noted and photographed that you discussed on your direct examination, you likewise made no conclusion as to the source or cause of that dent, correct?
That's correct.
And you did therefore not make any or draw any conclusions as to whether that dent was caused by any motor vehicle or pedestrian accident, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the taillight that you spoke about rather extensively on your direct examination, You likewise were not able to, and you make no conclusions as to the cause of that broken tail light, correct?
That's correct.
And you draw, therefore, no conclusions with regard to whether that tail light became in the condition that was discussed on direct examination pursuant to any alleged motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
The most fascinating piece about all this, folks, is that the pieces of taillight, if they came in contact and, hit and killed a human being, there would be so much DNA evidence on those pieces and on the taillight itself. It is pristine. It is squeaky clean. How is that even possible? Because she didn't hit him with her car. That's why. You found, oh God, I'm itching so much because this is so stupid. Oh my God. She found a hair. She found a hair. Guilty, Your Honor. Like, seriously? Is that... John would probably ride in that Lexus a lot. So hair is going to be... His DNA is going to be all over the inside of that Lexus. No question about it. He may be getting groceries and a hair would fall. Or it could be Karen's hair, a piece of Karen's hair. It could be anybody's hair. Just a hair blowing through the wind and landing on the Lexus. Anything is possible. That's not evidence. And besides, did you know that the FBI admitted, I want to say about 10 years ago, it's been a hot minute, that DNA, like hair follicle testing and DNA evidence when it comes to hair analysis is a sham. It's a fraud. You cannot determine who is the owner of the hair by testing the hair. Did you guys know that? That's why nobody's saying, oh, this hair definitely belonged to John O'Keefe or something like that, because that has been debunked. Like, they have been using it for decades, since at least the 80s. Like, oh, hair analysis. And they were convicting people based on that. Isn't that terrifying to think about? But hair analysis is a fraud. It's a sham. There's an article, actually.
The FBI is notifying hundreds of convicts nationwide that flawed analysis of hair samples at the FBI lab may have resulted in their convictions. Some of the defendants won't get the notice. They've already been executed. Here's Juliana Goldman.
I just kept on believing that someone would look into my story and see that I was telling the truth, that I was innocent.
Cleveland Wright spent 28 years, nearly half his life behind bars, convicted in a 1978 murder where prosecutors linked him to hair found near the crime scene. At the time, examiners only relied on microscopic hair analysis, which compares features like shape and color. But in 2012, more accurate DNA testing on those strands revealed that the FBI lab was wrong.
Thank God for the investigators that they're looking into other cases. They need to look into the other cases.
A new study found that from the 1970s through 1999, most of the FBI's examiners in the hair comparison unit provided erroneous information at trial.
That's crazy.
And in 268 cases where those forensics led to a conviction, 96% of the time it was based on flawed analysis.
Flawed
9
analysis.
of those defendants were executed, while 5 others died on death row.
Those numbers are just from one area. We're going to see a much bigger problem.
Dr. Frederick Whitehurst is an FBI whistleblower whose complaints ultimately led to a Justice Department review.
It isn't about vindication. It's about the people that have been harmed and our image of our justice system that has been harmed by the FBI's inability to police its own.
Wow. You see, folks, hair analysis is a sham. It's a fraud. Over decades, hundreds of people have been convicted, and partly due to fake hair analysis that is absolutely bogus. That's why we haven't heard anything about hair analysis over the last decade, in case you were wondering, like, that's interesting. You bring up a good point, Larry. I have not heard anything in the last 10 years. Now you know why. April of 2015, that's when it came out. I was a lawyer for a couple of years. I remember this.
The dent, the scratches, the broken taillight on the Lexus, to your knowledge, as you sit here today, could have existed before February 1st, 2022, when you went to Sallyport, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And to your knowledge, the dent, the scratches, the broken taillight could have existed before January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You also looked for, as you stated, tissue blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the vehicle, correct?
There it is.
Yes, I did.
In that inspection of the vehicle, you didn't see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle, did you?
No, I did not.
You were told, Ms. Hartnett, that there were wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And at the time you went to the Sally Port on February 1st of 2022, you were not shown a photograph by anybody of the wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe, were you?
No, I was not.
Oh.
However, you've seen since then a photograph of the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe and the wounds on that right arm, correct?
Yes, I have.
Ms. Hartnett, I'd ask you to take a look at that, and you recognize that what's depicted in that Exhibit 1, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of wounds on the right arm as depicted in a photograph of the decedent before, correct?
I've seen this photo before, yes.
You cannot state whether the wounds on the right arm as depicted in Exhibit 1 are from a motor vehicle, can you?
That would be on the scope of my expertise. I don't make any conclusions on injuries on a person.
So the answer is you cannot and do not make any conclusions with regard to the source of the wounds on the right arm as Mr. O'Keefe as depicted in that Exhibit 1, correct?
That's correct.
And you cannot state that you observed anything on the SUV that would cause the wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe as depicted in Exhibit 1, correct?
That is not a type of analysis I would perform.
So the answer to that question is no, you cannot state that you observed anything on the vehicle that would cause those wounds to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe?
Sustained.
Did you look toward the top of the lift gate of the Lexus vehicle when you were at the Sally Port Kent Police Department on February 1st of 2022?
Are you referring to the exterior or the interior?
Exterior.
I don't recall specifically looking at that area. I did an overall examination of the vehicle, with exception to the actual roof of the vehicle. So I don't remember specifically looking at that area.
So as you sit here today, there is nothing notable with regard to that area of the vehicle, correct?
I had nothing in my notes regarding that area, no.
And as you sit here today, there's nothing you're recalling that is notable about the tap part around the lift gate of the back of the SUV.
For the record, folks, this testimony is huge. Absolutely huge. Because if I'm a juror, I'm getting spoon-fed information from Alessi and the witness, who is a Massachusetts State Police crime lab investigator. And she just admitted 3 things already. We are barely 5 minutes into her cross-examination with Alessi, and already we have learned, number 1, his wounds on his arm appear inconsistent with the Lexus SUV. Number 2, you did not find any biological materials such as tissue or blood or stains on the SUV. And number 3, you have shown no evidence to connect the fact that the scratches, the broken taillight, etc., could have existed before January 29th. So you don't know if they existed, if they happened on the 29th, on the 30th, February 1st, January 26th. You have no idea. This is enormous. If I'm a juror, I am captivated by this testimony. Like, absolutely captivated. This is amazing.
That's correct.
Did anyone ask you to examine that area?
Not that area specifically, no.
Do you understand what I will refer to as the undercarriage of the vehicle?
Yes.
And what, just for the jury's better understanding, what are you referring to when you refer to the undercarriage of the vehicle? I know it may be common sense, but just to be clear.
What I understand the undercarriage to be, where if I was laying underneath the car, what I would be looking at, it include the muffler, various pipes, but that's the extent of my knowledge of vehicles.
So if we're talking about the back of the vehicle And if we go sort of top to bottom, top where we were talking about the lift gate going all the way down, and then go to the bumper, and then go under the bumper and where it curls under the bumper, then with the bumper and underneath and more a little toward the front, is that what you're referring to as the undercarriage?
Yes, just the general area underneath the vehicle, extending from under the bumper to the front of the vehicle.
Right, so the undercarriage is not merely from the back, but it's underneath all the way toward the front of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you refer to all, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So all that area you refer to as the undercarriage.
Yes.
Did you notice anything of note in the undercarriage, as you just described it, of the vehicle?
No, I did not.
And as regards sampling that you discussed on your direct examination, did you take any samples of that undercarriage area of the vehicle?
I did not collect anything from the undercarriage, no.
And is the reason you didn't collect anything because
Nothing
you didn't
existed.
see anything of note that was worthy of collection?
In addition to that, I also performed some testing of that area.
And what testing of that area did you perform?
I performed screening tests on some of the lower lying areas of the undercarriage, on the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, the muffler pipe.
And I
What-
discovered nothing.
Were the results of that testing, that screening testing?
Those results were negative.
And negative for what?
It was a screening test for the possible presence of blood.
So on the entire undercarriage, from where we started in the very back, all the way underneath, all the way up to the front, the screening test came back negative for any blood or other biological material or anything else of note that would be part of that screening test.
Yeah.
So I did not perform a screening test on the entire undercarriage. I just performed the screening test on the lower lying areas, and those were all negative. And there was also no visible staining in that area, so that is correct.
What I'd like to do now is to talk about sort of overall what we just discussed. So you discussed certain damage to the vehicle. You had no way on February 1st, and you have no way today of knowing whether any or all of that damage was pre-existing before January 29th of 2022, correct?
That's correct.
So it's possible that all the damage that you've discussed could have existed before January 29 of 2022.
Yes, that's possible.
On February 1st, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle, you also mentioned that you took swabs of, as I would call it, frozen red-brown stains located inside the red Solo cups.
Yes, that's correct.
Other than in this case, did you ever have to take swabs of red stain material from Solo cups that people usually use for other purposes?
Like drinking?
I've never performed a collection like that, no.
So this is the first time you ever performed a collection like that, correct?
I mean, the collection process itself is standard, the applying the sterile water to the swabs.
What?
and
That's not
putting
the question.
in,
That's not
a
the question.
potential, stain of interest.
That's not what he
However,
asked.
No, I've never collected a sample from a red Solo cup.
There you go.
Have you ever taken a sample from a red Solo cup since that February 1st?
No, I've not.
How did you choose which of the 6 Solo cups that you were going to take? And I
This
understand
is
you took
so
Did
good.
you take 2 swabs?
2 swabs, but they were considered the same sample. They were taken from the same cup, same stain.
That was what I wanted to get at, is you took 2 swabs, but they were from the same Solo cup.
That's correct.
Do you recall how you chose which Solo cup you were going to take the swab from?
I don't recall.
Could that be of significance, which one you chose and why?
No.
In this particular case, I did not believe it was significant at the time.
No, not at
Did
all.
you confer with anybody
'Cause who
as
cares?
to what might be the best Solo cup from which to take the swab?
I did receive information about where the Solo cups were collected from, which helped me in making that decision.
As a forensic scientist, too,
This is so
you're
good.
aware that blood stains can contain, and these red-brown stains here, could contain multiple contributors.
Hello.
In some instances, that is correct.
What's a multiple contributor?
A multiple contributor, I believe the term more used in the DNA unit. However, having many contributors to a particular stain just mean there may be multiple sources of that biological
Someone
material.
else's blood.
Do you know which red-brown stains that are contended to be found at the scene relate to which Solo cup in the bag that these Solo cups were in?
The information I had at the time were that these were collected from a single stained area from beneath the victim.
But you don't have personal knowledge of that, correct?
No, that's correct. I was not present at the scene at 34 Verrier.
If the swabs were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing whether the swabs were taken from the same stain,
Yeah.
correct?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Sure. If the swabs were taken from multiple stains, you wouldn't know where the swabs in particular came from?
So are you speaking of the swabs that I took?
Yes.
So the swabs that I took, I know came from one of those 6 cups. And I was informed that those 6 cups of red-brown stains came from a single stained area underneath the victim.
That information you just spoke about, was it put in any note that you read?
It was something that I had in my notes.
Did anybody else convey that information to you at the Sally Port?
I got that from an officer on scene at the Sally Port, but I do not recall which officer relayed that
So
to
it
me.
was verbal information you got from
That is correct.
person. Did that person show you any note or chain of custody or other document to support his or her statement in that regard?
No, they did not.
What did you do with the rest of the evidence in the cup?
That evidence was left with the Canton PD.
So you left the rest of the brown stained blood evidence from the solo cups with the Canton PD. You didn't take it back with you to your officer lab.
Correct.
DNA testing was not done on those swabs, was it?
I don't believe it was. No, no testing was done on those swabs.
There has been no confirmation of whose blood those swabs relate to, correct?
At this time, those were not tested for blood at all, so I couldn't confirm that they're blood, and no additional testing was done.
I couldn't confirm that it was blood. Is this woman drunk? What do you mean you... The reason we all know this, the investigation was intentionally botched to make sure if the blood had been tested, it would come back to somebody other than John O'Keefe. Uh-oh, you guys are in trouble. And they know it. So they're like, let's make sure to not test the blood because that could incriminate people that were actually involved. So let's just keep it on the DL. Let's hope this... Back then, you got to remember, this is well before Karen Reed hired Alan Jackson and David Yannetti, the original crew with Liza Little. Alessi is obviously joining us for the second trial. But it's as crucial to remember, folks, that the investigation, this is proof right here. If you needed proof, this woman is giving us everything. She is giving us absolutely everything on a silver platter. It's amazing. She's like, yeah, we didn't test the blood. The blood! We just assumed it was John's. I mean, obviously. He was hit by a car. Who cares? Well, what if he wasn't? It's not my business. But your job is to test blood sometimes. What do you mean sometimes? When I feel like it. So you botched an investigation intentionally to cover up for your friends. Got it.
Correct.
So therefore, we don't know any person or persons they might relate to.
That is correct.
And thus, we don't know if there were multiple contributors to those stains.
Why?
Testified that the
What?
remainder of the contents of the solo cup that you swabbed from, as well as the other 5 solo cups, were retained at the Canton Police Department, as you know, before you left. And that investigation, as you said at the time, was being headed up by former Trooper Proctor, correct?
That is correct.
Michael Proctor was at the Canton Police Department Sallyport location at the time you were performing your work on February 1st, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did Michael Proctor take control of those solo cups?
I do not know who took control of the solo cups. I know that I turned them over to a Canton police officer. I handed them to a Canton police officer.
Michael Proctor have taken control of those solo cups?
To my knowledge, it was a Canton police officer at that time. I don't know what happened to them after they were turned over to the Canton PD.
Why is it that you believe a Canton police officer had control over those cups rather than former Trooper Proctor?
Just from my actual memory, I remember turning them. They had collected the frozen red-brown stains in the cups, so it was technically their evidence. I took the sample I needed from them, so I just returned it to the officer who had presented them to me.
So therefore, after you presented them, you don't know who took control of those cups. Is that a fair conclusion?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. My question probably wasn't all that clear. During your work and inspection of the vehicle, the SUV, the right rear taillight housing was removed as you testified to on direct examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified that a Canton police officer sort of helped you with the last stage of the removal of that taillight?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know whether that officer was wearing, do you have a distinct recollection that that officer was wearing any special protective gloves?
I only know because I have seen the videos recently that he was wearing gloves.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I only know that he was wearing gloves because I have recently seen the video. I do not have a first-hand memory of that.
You said you recently saw a video. When was that?
Monday?
And what was
Maybe,
the
I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. What day is today? I saw it Thursday, excuse me.
And what was the circumstances under which you were reviewing a video?
I had just recently found out there was video, and it's just something I wanted to see in case I was shown it on the stand so I knew what it consisted of. I haven't seen it prior to last Thursday.
Did you testify to that on your direct and I missed it, or did it not come up? Reviewing a video.
I'm sorry, yes, I believe I was asked if I had seen the video, and yes, I had.
Okay, thank you. I know you went through this on direct, so I'm going to shortcut it. This is the tail light at the lab that you were talking about on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
There was one swab taken that you mentioned on direct of that tail light.
Yes.
And you
Its brake is pristine. What I mean by that is if this actually came in contact with a person, i.e. biological material, it would be all over this thing. I've been saying this since Turtle Boy first appeared on my channel in September of 2023. I will never forget it. I was in Poland and people were like, Larry, you need to talk to Turtle Boy. Larry, you need to talk to Turtle Boy. And I was like, okay, I'll interview him. And before I even had him on my channel, I said, just show me the damage to the back of the SUV. Show me the damage to the person, you know, in the autopsy report. And I will tell you if those two are connected. And people sent me the information before the interview. And I said, like literally, before I even interviewed Turtle Boy, John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. Like there was no impact. The damage to the vehicle is not consistent with striking a person. The injuries to John O'Keefe are not consistent with being hit by a car. There's a disconnect on both ends, not just one. And so as a result of that, I already formed an opinion within like the first hour of researching about this case. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed since my first impression in September of 2023. And Turtle Boy came on my channel. Shout out to you, buddy. He's doing great work over there in Canton. Apparently they're trying to keep him out of the courtroom now. Have you guys heard about this? They're trying to keep Turtle Boy out of the courtroom. They're doing like a lottery now, and his name is just consistently not coming up. They found a new way to keep him out of the courtroom. They're doing a lottery. It's the same names popping up every day, and his name is not coming up at all for the media to be in the courtroom. Despicable. Just absolutely despicable. I mean, at the very least, at least Turtle Boy gets a chance to stream it and make some money off of it, but I'd much rather be inside the courtroom. I am still trying to find a way to get inside that courtroom, hopefully before it ends over the next couple of weeks. So when I say couple of weeks, I mean the week of May 27th, and I guess it'll be the week of June 2nd. I don't know if it'll go beyond that very much, but maybe the week of June 9th at the absolute latest, because then the trial is going to be over. The trial is going to end. So I'm hoping to get a seat for one day. It would be nice. It would be cool if I can do it. I'm in contact with the people that I need to be in contact with. So we'll see. We'll see. Let me know in the comments below if you want the DUI guy in the courtroom with eyes on the jury. And by the way, as you're scrolling down, don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and all that good stuff. And if you need a lawyer, 1-844-77-4HURT, 1-844-77-4HURT. Call us 24/7, all 50 states, if it happened within the last year and you've been injured. So I am hoping to get a chance to get inside the courtroom over the next 2-3 weeks and report to you guys live. Again, like I said, let me know if you guys want me to report on the jury directly. Let's finish up this video. We still have about 10 minutes of testimony to get through.
Testified, if I remember correctly, on direct that it's better for you just, if you could with a pointer, is just show the areas you covered with that one swab.
So it's I collected the swab from any of the, what would have been exposed areas of the taillight when the taillight was intact.
And if you could please, the swabbing, you did not swab, therefore, any other area of that taillight, correct? Including the area to the left of where you just drew the circle, if you will, around, correct?
I would just say it's difficult from this picture to see if there is what would have been exposed when the may I finish? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know specifically on the left from this picture if there's anything that would have been there prior to the damage. If there was an external area, it would have been included in my collection. So I just didn't include any of the internal components of the taillight. So if I'm missing a piece over there that would have been on the exterior, then I apologize. I just can't see it in the picture if it's there.
Let's just assume my discussion and my questions. You don't have to assume this. My questions are just with regard to the inside of the taillight, because you've very nicely governed and talked about the outside of the taillight as you described it, where you swab. Now I want to go to the areas that you didn't swab.
Okay.
Whatever you best can do to describe the areas of the taillight that you did not swab.
Okay.
And if you could use the laser pointer, if that
Sure.
helped you.
So I did not swab the internal areas of the taillight. So here where the light bulb would have been, or down here where it's gray.
And focusing on the more, is it okay to call it the inside part of the taillight? Is that acceptable?
Okay.
So the inside of the taillight, to be clear, you didn't swab that area.
No, I did not.
Given that you swabbed with one swab the entire area, you are not able to say precisely where any DNA might have come from?
Just that it would have been present, if there was DNA present on that swab, it would have come from the external exposed area of the taillight, should the taillight have been intact.
But again, on the inside, because you didn't swab the inside,
Yep.
you had no evidence of DNA on the inside of the taillight, correct?
Correct, I did not swab the inside.
With regard to the, what we'll call the outside, where you did swab, as opposed to the inside where you didn't?
Again, further evidence and proof of intentionally botching an investigation.
You cannot define whether the DNA was to the upper right, to the outside of the taillight lens, or some other place in that area, correct?
No, I wouldn't be able to narrow down where on the external portion, external front. I mean, I didn't swab anything in the back that was attached to the vehicle. So anything in the external front, I would not be able to narrow down any further where, if any biological material was present, where it was recovered from, specifically on the external area.
You did not find any glass on the inside of the taillight, did you?
Are you referring to like loose pieces?
Any kind of glass at all?
I did not note anything unusual inside the taillight.
I'm speaking, thank you for that answer. I am speaking specifically about glass. You didn't find any glass on the inside of that taillight when you were at Sally Port for your entire inspection on February 1st, 2022, correct?
I'm just going to make sure that I understand your question. I didn't find anything that was not inherent to the taillight inside. I don't know what the taillight's made out of. So if there's a portion on the inside that's made out of glass, it may have been there. I didn't see anything that was out of place on the interior of the taillight.
So, using your terms inherent, you mean by that something could have been on the inside of that taillight that was part of the taillight that could have been glass. But other than that, there's no, what scientists call exogenous or outside glass or glass that doesn't belong as part of the taillight, correct?
I'm hesitant to answer that specific question. I don't perform glass analysis, so I just perform collection. So if there was something that apparently looked like glass that had been loose inside, if that's what you're referring to, I can answer that question. But I can't say specifically whether a material is glass.
I understand. My question is a basic one.
Okay.
Which is, you found no glass that would not be associated. Let me strike that. Did you ever observe in this taillight? Any glass is part of the taillight that's part of the taillight? Anything glass that you observe?
Again, I can't make the distinction on a material being glass, so I think the premise of the question I'm having difficulty answering.
Okay. So, last part of the questioning, you didn't make any note that said you found glass inside of that taillight, correct?
I wouldn't make a note that something is glass inside a taillight because I can't draw a conclusion to what a material is, because that's just not part of the analysis I do.
You didn't find any DNA on the inside of that taillight.
My analysis would not include DNA analysis because that is a different unit, so I can't answer that question.
To your knowledge, as you sit here today, is there any information from anybody that says that there's any DNA in that taillight?
I have no information of that.
Thank you. So what I want to do now is, if we can take that down, Mr. Wolk, I want to move on to what is sometimes referred to as touch DNA. I know you're familiar with that concept, right, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, touch
And
DNA.
what is, for the jurors' understanding, what is touch DNA?
When skin comes into contact with an item, potentially skin cells can be left behind, which is commonly referred to as touch DNA, when in essence it's these skin cells from the person being transferred to another object or item.
So is this a fair example that if I walk by the podium and brush my hand against it like that, I could very well leave touch DNA on that podium for what I just did? Okay.
This is standard governmental foundation for this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. So
Okay.
is it possible for me, as I'm sitting here talking, based upon your knowledge, to leave touch DNA on this podium?
Same.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Are you familiar with the process by which a person can leave touch DNA on the surface?
Yes, I commonly defer to biological material because that is what my expertise is in. Skin cells can be transferred to an item, and skin cells can potentially provide DNA.
So do hands, palms of hands, produce skin cells?
Yes, they are made of skin cells,
And
correct.
if a hand is on, for example, a podium, can there be a transfer of skin cells to the podium?
Yes, there can be.
There you
And therefore, can the hands on a podium that have skin cells transfer DNA?
Yes, again, I'm not a DNA expert, but generally that would be the source, would be skin cells. Could be, yes.
You also indicated that you collected apparent glass from the rear bumper of the Lexus, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you use the term apparent glass, as I understand forensic science, because at the time you're not really sure what it is, right? So you use the word apparent glass, and you can't take away the apparent until there's a confirmation that it is glass, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And on your direct examination, you went through a discussion, so I'm going to shortcut it a little bit, about apparent glass that you located on the rear bumper of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct. This is a close-up of the right rear area of the bumper where I noted the pieces of apparent glass.
And you remember discussing this on your direct examination?
Oh, that's why the glass inside the taillight was so important. Because if glass is going to be left behind, it's also going to be inside of the taillight. If it's just on the outside, that means it's been tampered with. Oh, that is brilliant. I think that's new. I don't think this was discussed extensively in trial number 1 with Hartnett. Maybe that's why she was so confused, because she's like, I didn't prepare for this. Where is he going with this? And she was so hesitant. She's like, I'm afraid to answer your question because, she understands completely. She just doesn't want to give away the farm, even though she's already given away half a farm. And thank you for that, Ms. Hartnett. We really appreciate your dishonesty / honesty to certain things. I mean, obviously, there's certain things she can't escape. Like, no DNA. She can't sit there and honestly say, no, DNA material was found, because it hasn't, right? But the glass, she's like, why is this glass thing? This is new. I didn't prepare for this. That's why she was so hesitant. Oh my God, this is brilliant. Good job, Alessi. Pat yourself on the back.
Now, I just want to cover some basics with regard that weren't covered on the direct examination. You're a specially trained person, and that's how you get your forensic scientist 2 title, correct?
Yes, it means that I've gone through all the training within the lab.
And all that training and all of those procedures are important and necessary because the collection of evidence is important, correct?
That is one of the reasons, correct?
And if those protocols aren't followed, then that can lead to incorrect conclusions, correct?
Depending on what portion of the protocol isn't followed, but yes, it's
But
possible.
certainly, at a minimum, it increases the risk for an incorrect conclusion or observation, correct?
Again, it depends on what part of the protocol isn't followed, but it's possible.
I assume it's therefore important to you that the protocols are followed so that the best result and the best collection and therefore the best analysis occurs, correct?
I make every effort to follow the protocols.
Is the quantity of the material you observe and collect also relevant, perhaps not to you, but to other persons in the investigation?
Yes, it can be.
And therefore, it's important not only to get the type of material correct, but to get the quantity correct.
In some instances, yes.
And with regard to your work on this vehicle on February 1st, do you recall discussing the collection, the observations you made with regard to the rear bumper?
Did I I'm sorry, can you ask that question again, please?
On direct examination, you talked about glass on the rear bumper, correct?
Yes, apparent
You
glass.
talked about what you observed, you talked about what you put a sticker on, you talked about what you collected, you talked about the transport of it, correct?
That is correct.
And you put it in your notes, and you talked about it on direct examination, I assume because it was an important part of the work that you did.
Yes, there's a piece of evidence that I collected, correct.
And therefore, it's important for you to have made correct observations and to make correct collection, correct?
Correct.
With Your Honor's permission, if we could publish Exhibit 133. If I could have a moment with Mr. Woke just to do this efficiently, Your Honor? Thank you. With Your Honor's permission, if Mr. Woke, you could zoom in on the stickers, right? So, Ms. Hartnett, on your direct examination, you stated that there were 2 stickers and that there were therefore glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, 2 stickers and glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, correct.
In fact, there's only 1 sticker, and the second sticker is merely a reflection of the first sticker, and therefore, you have doubled the stickers and you've doubled the amount of glass on bumper. Can you see that? Can you determine that from the photo?
What?
No, can I see the other photo, please?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we could, Your Honor, with your permission, go to Exhibit 133.
Okay.
You asked to see this one. Can you now make a determination, having seen both of them, whether there is in fact just 1 sticker and therefore 1 volume of glass associated with it?
No, I cannot.
What?
You're saying this is a reflection?
I can't testify,
Okay.
so I'm asking you.
What?
With Your Honor's permission, if we could go back to the other picture.
Okay?
Oh my God, he's
And you could zoom
right.
in.
It's the bumper.
Do you see a reverse B in that picture?
I'm sorry, I didn't pick that.
I'm sorry, a reverse B as in Bob?
No, could you zoom in on each of the stickers for me, please?
We'll do whatever you would like to do to answer the question, so.
Sure.
A B, okay, okay.
And then if I could just see the other sticker, please.
Absolutely.
Oh
Yes, I
my
think that was
God.
supposed to be correct.
Oh my God. Nailed it's just a simple, tiny little thing. There are 2 stickers. That's a simple, tiny little thing. But it shows her incompetence once again. And anytime you can highlight a witness's incompetence, oh, folks, it doesn't get much better than this. And I hate to cut this off here because it is so juicy, but we're going to continue this in part 2 of Ms. Hartnett's testimony. We have a lot more to go through with her, folks. I can't do it all in one video. It would be too long and my editor would slaughter me. So I can't wait. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Hartnett and the top 3 video. Bye, everybody.